Sleeves here with the Senior Pickleball Report powered by TNC Network. Let's get it going. Okay, today we have an interview with another team owner of the newly formed National Pickleball League, which begins play this June. It's owner Chris Montgomery of the Denver Iconics, and Chris and I talk all things pickleball. But before we get started, if you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out our socials. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And check out all our wonderful links for paddles and footwear and merch. All right, on to the interview with Chris. Part of the ownership team, Chris Montgomery of the newly formed franchise for the National Pickleball League, the Denver Iconics. Great name. Welcome to the Senior Pickleball Report, Chris.
Thanks. Happy to be here. It's exciting to be a team owner and have a chance to talk with you today.
Yeah, I mean, West Coast, west side of the Mississippi, we have a team. Yay!
Exactly. You know, that's a big part of wanting to do it is such a huge senior pro focus in Colorado. And the first two announced teams are Florida. So wanted to make sure we had a presence out here and in the Rockies. So we're excited.
Absolutely. That's very exciting. Very exciting. So we'll work our way towards, you becoming a franchise owner and player, but let's start kind of with you and a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into the ownership team and all that. But talk to me a little bit about, we always start with your pickleball journey, the pickleball journey of the people we're talking to. So walk me through how you came to this goofy wiffle ball sport like we all did.
Yeah, exactly. I moved up to Steamboat from Austin about right at 10 years ago, and I was a racquetball. I'd played racquetball and basketball. I just assumed I would play on the racquetball courts that used to be here in the 70s, and they tore those down to make condos, which is not an uncommon story for racquetball courts, right? So I was trying to figure out what to do in my 40s, and my basketball skills were diminishing a little bit. Just got invited by some locals to come play pickleball down at the tennis center. They've got a big indoor bubble, which is important when you live in a ski resort because we get a lot of snow out. Just came out and started hitting the ball around with the guys and was hooked. I think like a lot of us, you find something you can compete at again, and it relights those fires that may have. I've got kids at home, work, and all the different things that take up your time. It's hard to find something that you can really commit to and get that competitive fire lit again. And pickleball did that. So jumped 10 years ago, started playing in 2013, played our first tournament in 2014. And in a second tournament was Tao and I went and played 5-0 at the first tournament. It's like, let's go do it. We're the two players out here on the western slope that think we can go do this. Let's go jump in with these guys. And it's been ever since. So
right on. Yeah, that's what I like to see. People that jump in on the deep end. I did a little bit of that when I first started, and I've only been playing about a year and a half. But for me, it's one of those things. I would kind of rather get my butt kicked and see what I have to work on and what my flaws are than go in and play at a level that I could probably maybe do a little better in. But so talk to me a little bit about that. Is jumping in the deep end. Obviously, you're a competitive guy. You play probably a pretty high level racquetball. So talk about that and kind of stepping up quick.
Yeah, well, the deep end looks a little different 10 years ago than it does now, right? I think it's a much harder journey to jump in. A little bit like you live in a much smaller place than I do, but Steamboat's not that big of a town. We now have hundreds of people that play here. We're building this huge facility. It's going to be fantastic. But 10 years ago, there were a handful of us that played, and that was really the same in most of. We lived on the western slope of Colorado. If you want to get beat by somebody, you had to travel, right? And so now I just got beat by somebody today. So we've got a lot of better players up here now. But that was really it. If you want to improve, you had to travel, and the best way to do that was with tournaments. So we jumped in the deep end. Actually got a silver medal in our first 5-0 tournament. A lot of that was carrying me. It also was, there weren't as many 5-0 players back then, right? So it was a pretty small group. But we immediately jumped out to the fall brawl. Back in the day, there were no professional leagues. So there were 3 or 4 major national tournaments, TOC, fall brawl, nationals, and US Open came along right after that. I guess nationals was already there. But we just jumped in and found the players. And yeah, if you want to improve your skills, sometimes you have to go play the best. So that was really
Absolutely.
the goal from the beginning. And I've really, just been playing at that level since then, and just seeing tremendous growth in I was in my late 40s, which was the worst age to be for pickleball, right? You're playing, I'd go play 5-0 singles, and it's like I can definitely hold up with these guys for one match, right? And then
Yeah.
it's 20-year-olds for the rest of the day, and it's like it turns out I
Right.
can't. So it's not, we've got this division. It's like infants to 49, one division in those
Yeah.
tournaments, right? And
Yeah. Right.
and then you get 50 to 55 and 55 to 60. And so I started doing this in my mid to late 40s, and it pretty quickly it changes a lot when you're playing the 20-year-olds. So
Absolutely.
it's nice to see a senior pro happening.
Yeah. I jumped in singles too, kind of in the beginning. And then I found out, I'm not a tennis guy, or I don't have any tennis background or really a racket sport background. Like anybody, I had a tennis racket. I played some racquetball every 5 years when a friend would ask me. But my game was kind of really 2-man beach volleyball. So I had a court sense, but I found out quickly, like, okay, there's a lot of tennis guys that can just move me around and playing singles. And so I've kind of gravitated towards the doubles game, and I feel like I can hang a little better because I don't have necessarily to deal with such heavy ground strokes all the time. So
yeah, no, that's the same thing. I've played probably 3 tennis matches my entire life. Like the last tennis match I played was like my wife's little sister when she was a teenager, and I won. So good job me.
Yeah.
Beat 14-year-old, right? But most 14-year-old tennis players could crush me. I've never played. But that's one of the fun things is, my main sport background was basketball, and it doesn't help with ground strokes, right? But it certainly helps with court awareness, with defensive stance, with positioning. You see soccer players coming in, lacrosse players. That's one of the great things about the sport. Obviously, I think tennis is going to translate the most, certainly for singles. But like all of us, I think if you're not a tennis player, doubles is generally where we spend most of our time, right? But it's get in shape if nothing else. So
absolutely. Talk a little bit about the transition from racquetball, though. I mean, more of a wristy game, obviously. I play against a fair amount of racquetball players out here, and boy, they can hit it hard and low. And consistently, like this high over the nets. You got to be ready.
Right. Well, and I played A-level racquetball, but there's a level above that. There's the open level, and I was kind of at the bottom of A-level. So it was never, it's something I did because I liked it, but it was never as big of a for me as like playing basketball was. The transition obviously helps. Anything that gives you that the comfort with racket and the racket skills, I think, is a big thing. Helps with having quick hands. I've certainly played some elite racquetball players that were far better at racquetball than I ever was. We see some of those. We see some of those on the pro tour. Yeah, I mean the power they can generate, the wrist. I do have probably a more wristy game than a lot of people. Just choke up on the paddle, short strokes. That brings you a lot of advantages. But the one disadvantage is a lot of times people taking those bigger backswings, and so you eliminate that not coming from tennis or coming specifically from racquetball. There's a lot more power on the backhands for people there. So the one-hand backhand is like I'm trying to kind of slowly learn the two-handed backhand, but it's more of an experiment. I think a couple of two-hand backhands in a tournament, I'm much more likely to just play left-handed than I am backhand, just because that's the nature of it. So.
Yeah, that's like Rick Witzkin. I mean, he switches hands all the time. I do as well. I play a couple things. I do several things right-handed and several things left-handed. And this sport actually translates pretty well because the paddles. And I'm, again, like you, I'm sort of experimenting with the two-hander. It's more trying to get my non-dominant hand to lead.
Right. Well, and that's a basketball thing too, right? I mean, our junior high basketball coach made us brush our teeth left-handed, right? You have to play so much. A lot of sports are that way. I got a left-handed around the post in the tournament today, but I'm hitting, one shot a game that way. I'm not going to try to ambidextrous like a few of the old school guys try to do, purely forehands. That's not something I want to do. It's more, if I'm hitting that, I'm probably out of position, right? So
right, absolutely. So let's talk about NPL a little bit. I mean, obviously, Major League Pickleball changed the landscape of pickleball in some level, because people, not only obviously players and people that could get involved in ownership, and obviously people that could start leagues, but fans really seem to gravitate towards the team concept. And I'm thrilled to death to see the senior level sort of highlighted, not only in a team format, but at a location like Chicken and Pickle, where you can kind of hang out and have some food and a beer and get up close and see really the talent level of seniors, because I watch an unhealthy amount of pickleball, and mainly senior pickleball, because that's my age group as well, and that's the level I would like to get to. So talk about NPL and the excitement you had when you saw something like this coming on the horizon.
Yeah, no, it's great question. I'm a pickleball junkie as well. I mean, it's March Madness is going on while we're recording this, so I'm going to have basketball on later, but I'm going to have pickleball on another screen.
Hey, Marquette, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Golden Eagles, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll be watching pickleball later. MLP's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed watching it. I'm sure they've made mistakes along the ways and done some experimenting, but that's fantastic. Let's experiment. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Especially the last round, watching that last round of MLP. I want to give them kudos, right? It was really enjoyable to watch, to see the team support each other. They're doing it in a little different format with their, 4-person to a team, right? You get a couple, get the men's and women's and a couple mixed, and then the dream that they do. I really like their format. And it's, I think a big piece of theirs is getting people to eyeballs on YouTube and eyeballs on the TV. We certainly want to do that too. But you mentioned we're gonna have bigger teams. We're gonna have, I believe the way we're going right now is 16. There's 6 teams. There will be 6 teams. I've only announced 3 so far.
Right.
For the third team, 16 people. It's going to be at Chicken and Pickle. There's definitely an element of come out and see the people. Pickleball's got, we play it very competitively, but it's also got a real social element to it as well. Yeah. And I think, and on the senior pros, a lot of them are pretty well known. Some of these guys are, some of them are pickleball full time. They're traveling around and coaching. Other times they're pickleball part time, like I've been. But you get to know them. You get to play against them. I think a lot of the players may identify a little bit less with maybe Ben Johns, right?
Right.
Because he's athletic and he's turned 25, right? And the level of skill with the senior pros is still really high, but there's a different level of identification. I think people can really come out and be like, I could probably hang with that guy. Well, maybe you can't, but you kind of can. Get on the court, have some fun, really see these men and women play, and I'm excited about that. I think there's. We want to really focus on building. We're the Denver team. I happen to live up in Steamboat. My partner Mario, that's doing this with us down in Denver. But we wanted to have, there's such a strong Colorado presence. I want people to be able to identify with the team. Buy the shirt, buy the hat, but get to know the players. They're not all going to be from Colorado, of course, but there is a regional identification with it. And certainly in the first year, we're going to be playing at Chicken and Pickle. Mostly kind of Midwest. There's Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona. But in future years, we love the support of Chicken and Pickle, but we'll also be able to play at other locations. Maybe we'll do a regional, right? Maybe we'll have one of the Florida teams will come up to Colorado and we'll do some things with some practice and with some skiing, right? Come up here and we'll go down there.
Right.
But just doing those things, it's early days. We know the vision that Michael and Rick and Beth put forward. It's going to change, right? It's not going to be exactly this 5 years from now, but that's great. I mean, look at the NBA and the ABA. They merged and they changed and they grew. Yeah. This is about being in on the early days and seeing the growth. And there's just so many people. Like I said, there's hundreds of people. I've been in a town of 13,000 people, and there's more than 300 people in our pickleball club, right? The majority of them, originally, they were all over 50. I think I was the young guy originally, right? I was in my late 40s. Played out there today, played some 20-year-olds and some 30-year-olds and some kids. Yeah. And we're seeing that growth, but the predominant is still the people over 50. And we want to pull them in. You mentioned liking to watch pickleball, which I do as well, but also liking to watch senior pickleball. It's hard to find senior pickleball to watch right now. That's live. You might get, you might get 1 or 2 matches that maybe an APP tournament. They had kind of had a little bit better senior focus. You generally won't see many senior matches on PPA unless they happen to have 4 or 5 cameras set up at one of the events. Right. It's hard to watch. We want people to identify with those guys that, Scott Moore was winning, he was winning pro level 5 years ago, and he's been crowning at the senior level, and now some other guys have caught up, but people have been watching him for years. Let's make sure there's a way to watch him. Right. Let's make sure there's.
The guy's going to be. If he's not, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, correct? So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But let's, all of those guys. We also want to have a little bit. We're trying to figure out the exact rules right now, so I don't want to talk out of school. No, but we want to make sure that the teams have a few of the super seniors too. Get a couple of people that are a little bit older that can still hang, right? Those guys are
All right.
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
We want to make sure they get included too. I think most of we're seeing it now that the game's getting more athletic, pro and senior pro.
Sure.
So the guys that are going to, probably the most dominant senior pro, right, 2 years from now is somebody who's 49 right now, right?
Right.
So we'll see where that goes, but it's fun to support, and we're excited about it.
Hey, you know what we got? We have a newsletter. Yes, Senior Pickleball Report, SPR newsletter, which is cool because it keeps you up to date with not only pickleball, but an emphasis on senior pickleball. There's a link in our description, and you get caught up on all things pickleball. So check it out.
Hey, if you're looking for very, very comfortable court shoes, in fact, the most comfortable court shoes I've ever worn, and I've worn a lot of them over the years playing different sports, try Fitville. We have a link in the description that gets you $20 off your purchase.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt you've touched on a bunch of things here that are really important. I think one of it is the communal feel of the seniors and, playing together. And, y'all are folks who have sort of, you've made your mark in life, and you're not necessarily doing this to make a living. You're doing this really because you love the game. And on some level, you're really building something for the future for people who are going to be turning into their 50s someday. That's, I think what's great is you sort of have a built-in farm system of names and recognizable names who have made it in the open pro level. And then those names will come in and establish again, in senior tour golf or senior tour tennis. I think you've really sort of built a concept here that is proven because you have a farm system of recognizable names coming in, and you're already very communal. I mean, if you follow senior pro pickleball on Instagram or any of the social medias, you watch it on YouTube and you're battling it out, and sometimes it gets chippy, but at the end of the day, you see people out having dinner together, and they're hanging out and they're doing different things. And I think that's sort of a pretty cool thing to see at the senior level, and just bringing it into like a chicken and pickle, and adding the sort of that element of having fun and sitting around and eating and drinking while people can watch high end level pickleball. And it's going to be exciting. And obviously the changes that y'all will make, and depending on how things work over the years, this is a really exciting time to be involved because you're on the level where you kind of get to be part of those changes and make this thing go where you want it to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Getting to have at least some voice in the direction of that's going to be,
yeah.
Gonna be a lot of fun. And a lot of it too is making the decision to invest is, obviously a belief in pickleball and senior pro pickleball, but really a belief in the people that are leading this too, with Beth and with Beth Allen, with Rick Witzkin, and then Michael, both his pickleball knowledge and his business knowledge. We get to have a voice, but we're also along for the ride with the vision that these guys have.
Yeah, right.
And that's exciting. It's I hadn't really thought a ton about the farm system part of it, but even watching pickleball today, there's a handful of guys in their 40s still playing top level pro. I mean, it's maybe three guys, and maybe a few more of the women that are at that age.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But they're pretty quickly, more and more youth is coming in all the time. But they've already established some names for themselves. There's a few, there's a couple of the top men and a couple of the top women that are still playing that level. They're gonna turn 50 within the next couple of years. So that defined systems is going to be an interesting thing to see as they get more and more well known, and as more eyeballs are on pickleball. It even ties in with the name for us, right? The Denver Iconics, right? These
exactly
people that we're the senior pros. Let's be clear. I'm not 20 anymore, right? Kids that are that age. It's one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is iconic, and it is that mixing the social element, but doing it in a way that really is professional in terms of the league. I mean, we've got a combine coming up. We've got a draft coming up. There's people flying in for overseas to compete at the combine, and and the rankings are a little wonky in pickleball right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, are you a 4.9 or a 5.2? It doesn't matter, right? Like, it matters that you've played and you can play at that level. This is going to be the first chance for a lot of people to really go through that. I mean, I love the idea of participating in and on both sides of a combine, right? And seeing, hey, how do you build the team? Is it just the best skill, or is it, that guy's left-handed and he's pretty good? That's a good teamwork. That person's great at mixed, but they're not mobile enough to play singles. What role is singles going to play? How about attitude? Do you want just super fiery? We saw it in the NLP. Some really fiery teams were really important. On the other hand, what does it take to be a good teammate? When in a team environment, those are going to be some interesting things. As much as the social part of it, and people watching and people having fun, it should all start with fun. This is going to be very competitive as well. Like these teams are going to be
absolutely
the idea of let's go. It's only 6 teams to start with, but let's go win this thing, right? So.
Right, no doubt, and that's the thing. And you're going to build the infrastructure of your franchise over the years, just like everybody else is. Having different positions. Do you have a GM? Do you have somebody that goes out and watches a ton of matches and can scout and go, yeah, this person fits our kind of concept of how we want to build a team? And that's, I think, to me, all the exciting stuff that's coming up. And by the way, I'm left-handed. But it's really kind of cool. And I think if you just look at it, you're leaving something behind that other players who are not even thinking about their senior years of playing over 50, that they'll have something to play at a professional level. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And what does it mean to be professional, right? I actually, I'm sure I played at the first truly professional. They had some money events, but they set up a tour. God, it must have been 7 years ago. It was the PPP tour. It was the predecessor of these. It only lasted about a year.
Right.
We played down in Palm Desert at Marston's club. And I think I only won 1 game and 0 matches, but it was like the first ever pro tournament. This is pre-senior days for me because I hadn't turned 50 yet.
Yeah.
And even just the pro pickleball is in its infancy, right? They had a few major tournaments. That league lasted about a year, and it did good things to move it forward. I got money at 2 events this year. The money I made didn't even pay for my registration. So being pro right now is such an infancy thing, but it's about pulling that group together and giving them that vision that, we're going to pay out, I think it's $100,000 to players this year on the tour.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's sub 20% of what gets paid out of the fees that come in. About 20% of it gets paid out.
Right.
In this case, the fees that come in for people to play, I think we're paying out double what the fees are. It's like 200%. So it's really, that's not enough. 100,000 across all those people. Nobody's making a career out of just their earnings, even with the amount that we're going to pay. But it does start to matter. It starts to pay for some of your travel. It starts to give some people the vision of what can we build this to. Most of the people are already established outside of pickleball, probably in their careers, as you mentioned, but it's a chance to really move this forward. It didn't exist 10 years ago. What will it look like 10 years from now? Don't know, but it's going to be exciting to see. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think what's for me, what's really cool about all this is seniors really sort of taking their future in their own hands. They're not necessarily depending on somebody else, some other bigger tour to sort of highlight them and set up events for them. Y'all have if you bring everybody's brains in, who's not only a player or an owner or who is a founder of this league, bringing in all that life experience and starting something on your own and not depending on somebody else or another infrastructure or organization to do it, I think is a big deal. And I think it's also a good lesson for the pros of today looking at, because they're sort of in that place now where, they're getting involved in something that could go through the roof as far as financial, options and availability goes and all those things. And so they have to think about these things, and they're kind of finding themselves like, where's my position in this? Where's our power as players? And that's why I'm really happy to see that the senior pros kind of saw, read the tea leaves, so to speak, looked at the landscape and go, we can do this. And maybe this is the time to pull the trigger on this and start our own thing.
Yeah. And it's at the tours too. If even, at the larger tournaments, as they were launching some of the professional tours at the beginning, it felt pretty 50-50, and not in terms of the eyeballs maybe, but it's like, oh, here's the pro match and here's a senior pro match. Yeah. They were both taken care of fairly equally. But over the last couple of years, the senior pro got pushed to the side as the pro growth and more money came into it. The focus on the senior pro, and frankly, even just the way they were, I don't want to say they were poorly treated, but it certainly got diminished and off to the side a little bit.
Yeah, right.
There's some other things, not just the NPL, that are trying to fix that. I want to support all the senior pro things that are going on.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Play at other tournaments. They're trying to have some senior pro focus. Some of the names even get confusing because they're very similar, right? But,
Right.
So there's a bunch of things happening in the senior pro, but this one in particular, especially on the team side, is really what's going to make it stand out. We have the, we have the control, like you said, but it's not just the weekly tour where you're traveling around the country. It's getting together with the same people, figuring out the things like the GM part of it, the team, the business side of it, players playing with a group and really getting a chance to build that identity. There's still some stuff we have to figure out about down the road about trades or about injuries, replacements. We're early days, right? We're a few months away from our first game. But that's part of it. Let's take control of it and make sure we have a place where the senior pros, it's the entire focus for these events. It's not just a small piece of a larger tournament or off to the side. It's the focus. You show up at that event, you're gonna mingle with the top players. You get a chance to watch the top players, and the top players are all in one spot. Like right now, I'll travel to some of the tournaments, and you may not get any of the top players at one of the matches, or you may get several, and it's not very consolidated. I think this will help with that a lot.
Yeah, I agree, and I think having watched a lot of senior ball, it's there's some serious personalities in the game, and I do believe the team concept will actually even highlight those more, because people will be really, kind of, they're not just playing for themselves, obviously, or their teammate. They're playing for their franchise. They're playing for the fans that will come eventually and support those teams. So, I watch Rick play, and he's a gas to watch on the court. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other personalities come out, because sometimes when you throw people into a team concept, they're a whole other animal on the court.
Yeah. Well, and for good and for bad, right? It's real pressure. I mean, it's one thing when if I go out and play singles, win or lose, it's on me. Even just doubles, you're like, okay, you've got a team. How do you support your teammate? But how do you figure out the strategy? And if you play together with the same person all the time, you really get your rhythm of like, oh, we're going to stack. I'm a right side player, you're a left side player, or whatever it is. But with those personalities are going to be figuring that out. You mentioned Rick. I mean, Rick's kind of a goofball on the court sometimes, incredibly competitive, and obviously one of the top players. Other people are way more intense and different kind of. And he's intense too, but in a different way.
Right?
How does that come out together, right? There's going to be some intensity to this, and you also have some real strategy around it too. We're going to have some people that get drafted onto the team will be not in every event. There's going to be some rotations. There's some not subs exactly, but some people are going to play every time. Some people only play the time. Figuring out those dynamics. Do you put your worst player with your best player for one of the matches, and they try to cover it, or is the best and the worst a good combo, or two guys in the middle, or how does that work? And there's going to be some challenging dynamics in there. It's pressure. If you've got Rick on the left and I'm playing on the right, I'm going to see more of the ball. Well, that's good because I'm a counter attacker. But that's a lot of pressure on me, right? Figuring those things out are going to be really interesting in a team setting. So, and some of the teams, I think, you mentioned the GM. It's my understanding that some of the team owners will actually have somebody be their GM who's not necessarily. In our case, the first two owners that were announced actually have facilities. They don't have the ability to necessarily travel. In our case, Mario and I don't have a facility. There's some great facilities in Denver, and I'm associated with facilities in Steamboat. But we're going to just be traveling to these other ones. We're doing this, a lot of it because it's interesting and fun. We're going to be our own GMs, figuring out the rankings, figuring out the draft. I'm still figuring out. I think I'm going to play, but I owe it to the team to make sure I'm good enough at the combine. Right? I think I've beaten a bunch of the top players. I've been beaten by a lot of the non-top players. Like, let's go figure this out and be honest about it. And Mario will have to decide, like, hey, no, Chris, you're out, or let's go try to do it. We saw the dynamic of owner player MLP, right? And Travis created controversy at first because nobody was sure if he was quite good enough, and he was barely good enough. He is crushing it now. So I hope I can do that. But there's some dynamics there, right? Some other people you bring in, they've got some of the senior pros are helping with MLP as GMs, right? Like it's interesting to figure this out. There's not a established years of coaching a team because no one's done it before, right? So that's fun.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you've started, obviously, if you're going to take on a franchise, you've thought about a lot of these things. And how cool is it? You get to create a draft board. That's yours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge NBA fan and I love watching the finals, but my second favorite day of the year is the draft, right?
Right.
My other favorite days are the days, and then my other favorite day is the trade deadline. And I know that's like total degenerate, right? But I would probably rather read about who's going to get traded and drafted than I would just watch a random game. I mean, I could do both. It's not quite the same level of that in pickleball, but it is interesting, that there's a handful of really clear top players. They're automatically going to be
sure.
Coming out of the combine, we get a couple spots that are up for grabs. Like you can guarantee a draft spot by basically winning the combine, or being essentially
really playing really well.
You play really well, you're going to definitely get a spot. But for the rest of them, what are your draft criteria? Your draft board. If I've got two players that are exactly the same and one of them happens to be in Colorado, I should probably take the Colorado person because we're trying to build a team. There is a marketing component to it, but more importantly, right? Like, hey, if you guys are completely identical and one of you lives somewhere else, maybe I draft that one. But it's completely identical, not in pickleball, right? There's a lot that the draft, the coverage of the draft, the having it live. We're doing the draft, but we're going to do a live draft announcement. Those things are, it's fascinating. It's fun. None of us have the kind of capital to go be NBA owners, right? But hey, we own a professional sports team, and it's pretty cool. My kids like it, so that's fun.
Absolutely. Hey, last question, I'll get you out of here. Talk about, and I'm not necessarily talking about obviously wins or losses or anything like that, and maybe some of the intangibles, but if you thought, do you have any expectations for this season? Like, what are your expectations, not only for the league, but for the Denver Iconics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Is I don't know a good answer? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think we have. I mean, the expectations right now. I think they're doing. This is all moving fast and furious. I mean, I know by the time this recording comes out, we probably will have announced at least another couple of the teams, right?
Yes.
But we're announcing the teams, setting up the combine, doing the paperwork, figuring out sponsorship. I mean, it's hair on fire. And for me, it's a sideline, right? I run in a real estate investment fund in Colorado. That's my full-time job, right?
Yeah.
So I'm committed to that. And this is super fun sideline, but it doesn't replace, right?
Right.
So with that, I think the goal is for the first year to put out a really good product that's enjoyable by the players, enjoyable by the fans, and to have some fans. I think people will really want to come out and see this. We want to establish that senior pro pickleball is a legitimate thing. There's some people think it's not. They're like, no one wants to watch that. Nobody wants to watch these old people. Well, it's an athletic, fun game. And I think there's also going to be come out to one of these events. You're probably going to get some rec play with some really good players, right? Come watch. I'll play with you. Come, buy me a beer. Let's go play, right? Let's go. I'll buy you a beer.
Right. Absolutely.
That's kind of how it works, right? And so I think establishing that senior pro pickleball is legitimate, and especially establishing that the team concept is legitimate. That's really our goal for the first year. Like I said, I want to do everything that we do really well. I want to build up a fan base, really establish the team, and then I want to win. I want to build the team that goes out there, competes and wins. I'm guaranteed top 6, so that's something, right? But we also and for the next years, it's really about growth. We expect to add. We've got the business plan with the exact number of teams. You never know those are not available. But we expect that we will grow, have 6 teams this year, additional teams really each of the next 5 years. If we can add a certain number of teams, and I think Michael will make some really wise decisions about how fast that growth should be, how good are the players, and who's coming in. You don't want to dilute it with, if we had 30 teams right now, you wouldn't know hardly anybody on most of the teams.
No, right.
Travel's too hard. There's a lot of that to figure out. Figuring out how to build a team that identifies, like when, I'm a Golden State Warriors fan because I watched, Curry play in college, right?
Yeah.
But people identify with that team. One of the things MLP has not had a chance to do yet is to really have as much building around the team so much as just the players.
Right.
And they've worked on that. They've done a nice job on it. But we want to learn from that. I want people to know who, no one's on the team yet, but after we figured it out, we want to promote and support those players so that you can actually come out and cheer for a team. You want this team to win because of the personalities, because of the Well, because of the style of play. I mean, all of those things. It's going to take some time to establish that. So if we can build it now and see that growth over the next 5 years, by the time we get that growth done, I probably can't play anymore because the people that are 48 now are coming in and moving it to a whole different level. And that's great. Let's move this forward. So.
Right. Absolutely. And, before you know it, Chris, people will be wearing Chris Montgomery jerseys.
I haven't figured out names or numbers right now, but it's, people are going to be wearing Denver Iconics jerseys in a couple of months, right? I mean, we're working on logos and shirts and windbreakers and
how cool is that?
I don't need my name on there, but if I've got Denver Iconics, first time I walk into a place with somebody I don't know and they're wearing that jersey, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun.
I've got some commitments of T-shirts already today, but we're working on that. So.
Right on. Well, hey, Chris, been speaking with Chris Montgomery, part of the franchise ownership of the Denver Iconics, new National Pickleball League starting in June. Got a draft coming up, a combine coming up. Hey, thanks for your time. Best of luck this season, and hopefully I can catch up with you at one of the events and get to meet you in person.
Yeah, let's do it. And thanks for all your support for Senior Pro Pickleball. We appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed our interview with Chris. Check out the NPL this season and obviously the Denver Iconics if you get a chance at a chicken and pickle near you. All right, folks. Hey, let's pickle.
New paddle company, Pickle, PCKL. Great paddle line, great price points. Anything you want from starter paddle to intermediate to a Pro Series high-level paddle. Check them out. Get 15% off using my discount code. Pickle. It's the future.